In the heart of the vast African jungle, where the sunlight weaved golden patterns through the towering trees and the air was filled with the songs of birds and the rustling of leaves, lived a creature unlike any other, Anansi, the spider. But Anansi was no ordinary spider. While his 8 tiny legs spun delicate webs, it was his mind that was most remarkable. Across the jungle and even beyond, animals and humans alike knew of Anansi's great wisdom and cleverness. Anansi's home was a large baobab tree standing tall near a winding river. Its branches spread wide like welcoming arms, and its thick trunk was etched with stories of old, whispered by the winds and told in the crackling of fires at night. Every morning, Anansi would spin silken threads from branch to branch, crafting intricate patterns that glistened in the early sunlight. But his webs were more than just silk. They were the threads of tales and lessons that the jungle needed. One bright morning, as the jungle buzzed with life, a gathering of animals approached the baobab tree. First came Kwaku the tortoise, slow and steady with his wrinkled shell carrying the wisdom of many years. Following him was Amina, the old elephant whose deep, kind eyes had witnessed countless seasons. Then there was Badu, the lively monkey known for his playful tricks but also for his sharp instincts. Anansi, called Kwaku, his voice gentle but urgent, we come with troubling news. The spider paused his weaving and listened as Kwaku continued. The great river that nourishes our jungle has begun to dry. The waters that once flowed freely and gave life to every tree and creature now trickle faintly. If this continues, the jungle will wither, and many of us will suffer. Anansi's 8 eyes gleamed with concern. The river is the lifeblood of our home, he said. Without it, everything will perish. We must find the cause and fix it before the jungle dies. Amina trumpeted softly. The rains have not come as they once did, and the river's source in the distant mountains seems weaker each day. Something has changed. Badu added with a nervous twitch, there are whispers that the river spirit is angry, perhaps because we have forgotten the old ways, the ceremonies and respect she once demanded. Anansi nodded thoughtfully. Then we must journey to the river's source and speak to this spirit. Only understanding her will lead us to a solution. The animals exchanged worried looks. The journey to the mountains was long and perilous, and none but Anansi dared to face the unknown alone. With a determined nod, Anansi prepared to set off. I will go and speak to the river spirit. I will bring back her wisdom and find a way to save our jungle. As he began his journey, Anansi encountered many obstacles, crossing rivers that now seemed too fast and deep, avoiding predators hungry for an easy meal, and navigating dense forests thick with underbrush. Yet, with every challenge, his clever mind found a solution. At one point, Anansi came to a deep ravine, too wide to jump and too deep to climb down. The other animals had failed to cross this place, but Anansi, weaving a strong silk rope from his web, swung across with ease. Further along, the jungle changed. The trees grew sparse, replaced by rocky cliffs and dry soil. The air grew thinner and cooler as he approached the mountains. I am not lying, she said. I don't know how I came to be like this, but I have never been touched. Not by man, not by beast. I'm not ashamed of what I carry, only confused. A woman from the back shouted, Then what do you carry, eh? A goat? Laughter burst like firecrackers. Even Chief Ogundel sighed heavily, but Naima did not cry. She stood tall, her hands on her round belly. You may not believe me, but I speak truth. I am not a harlot, I am not cursed. Whatever grows in me was placed by something greater than I can explain. Chief Ogundel's eyes narrowed. Then prepare. In 3 days, we shall bring the Ajukaidian Babalawo, the spiritual seer. If you speak falsehood, the land shall curse your name. But if you speak true, he paused. Then the gods will reveal themselves in ways we cannot imagine." Naima nodded once, her face stone. That night, no one slept beside her. Even her mother placed her food outside the hut. The wind returned, whispering again. But this time, it whispered only one thing: "Hold fast, child of mystery. The storm is coming." And Naima, all alone, placed her hands gently on her belly and whispered back, "Whoever you are, whatever you are, I will not be afraid." The rising sun cast long shadows over the clay roofs of Macondo village. The air smelled of roasted cassava and suspicion. 3 days had passed since the public confrontation, and now the people waited with hungry eyes. They wanted answers, judgment, or at least a confession that would let them sleep easier at night. Naima woke on the cold floor of her hut. The mat beneath her had worn thin from nights spent tossing, not from discomfort, but from worry. The quiet early morning had become her only peace, when no one watched, when no one whispered, but even silence had started judging her. Today was the day of truth. Today, the Babalawo would come. They came in a procession, drummers, dancers, and villagers who had not seen the spiritual seer in over 5 years. His name was Baba Koyi, a man so old that no one remembered when he was young. His beard was knotted with bones. He wore a robe made from the skin of 7 different animals, stitched together with stories only the gods could decipher. He arrived in the village square, surrounded by chanting boys and a goat with beads tied around its horns. The moment he entered, women covered their heads. Children stopped playing. Even the breeze seemed to pause. The village chief rose and extended both hands. "Welcome, Baba Koyi. We seek wisdom." The old man didn't smile. He simply walked forward and struck his staff against the earth 3 times. The ground answered with a distant rumble. "Bring the girl," he rasped. Naima was led forward, barefoot and without jewelry. A girl was never brought to the seer in adornment. Truth must arrive plain or not at all. The crowd closed in around the sacred circle drawn on the earth with white chalk. Naima stood inside it. Beside her was the goat, the living witness. Around them sat the elders, the chief, and Baba Koyi. He stared at her for a long time. So long, it felt like his gaze peeled away every layer of skin and spirit. Then he spoke. "You claim innocence, yet your body speaks of fruit." Naima held her belly. "I have not tasted a man." "Have you walked in the river under the moon?" "Yes." "Have you slept beside the fire with open thoughts?" "Yes." "Have you seen anything unseen?" She paused. "I have felt something. A presence. In dreams." The villagers began murmuring. "Silence," barked the chief. Baba Koyi closed his eyes and began to chant, rocking slowly, his staff raised toward the sky. He sprinkled dust over her feet, cast cowrie shells into a calabash, and whispered in tongues. The shells danced, clicked, and settled. Everyone leaned forward. Baba Koyi opened his eyes. "This girl," he declared, "has not known flesh. The womb is full, but untouched," a woman screamed. A man fell to his knees. "Then what is it?" shouted Elder Guma. "What grows in her?" The seer pointed at Naima's belly. "Not what," he said, "but who?" The village divided like a river broken by rock. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a trick. A few whispered abomination. But the loudest word was one Naima herself didn't understand. Chosen. Chosen for what? People no longer only stared. Now they feared her. Her hut was avoided. Young girls were forbidden to speak to her. Even the market women no longer hissed. They simply crossed themselves and walked away. Mama Asana wept in secret. "My daughter," she cried, I don't know whether to cover you with shame or dance for your name." Naima said nothing. She just sat on the ground, rubbing her belly in circles, whispering to the child inside. That night, as moonlight poured through the cracks in her roof, Naima heard a sound, a soft knock, not on the door, but on her spirit. She sat up. There, in the dark corner of the hut, stood an old woman. Her skin was the color of charcoal and her eyes burned like coals in a hearth. Naima was not afraid. The woman spoke in a whisper, yet her voice filled the hut. "You carry what others cannot understand, but the child knows you. The child listens." Naima's eyes watered. "Who are you?" "I am the one who was sent before you, the one who bore silence. You are not the first, but you may be the last." And then, just like that, she vanished. By morning, the whispers had returned, but they had changed. "She is protected," some said. "No, she's possessed. She walks with the ancestors. She walks with the devil." And through it all, Naima stood alone, not with pride, not with shame, but with the quiet conviction of someone who had nothing left to prove, only something yet to discover. The night air in Macondo carried a chill, as though the land itself had inhaled but forgotten to exhale. Inside her lonely hut, Naima sat cross-legged, hands over her swelling belly, eyes fixed on the flickering flame of her oil lamp. The silence was heavy, but familiar. She hadn't spoken to anyone since the mysterious old woman vanished the night before. Her mother, Mama Asana, refused to speak of it. The villagers refused to speak to her. The Babalawo had left the village before the cock crowed, leaving only his footprints in the dust and a storm of questions in his wake. But that night, as the stars shivered and the trees stood still, the wind came to Naima, not how it came to everyone else. This wind whispered, "Naima." Her name, soft as cotton, yet firm as thunder, swirled around her ears. She stood quickly, heart racing, eyes darting about the hut. "Naima, you are not alone." The voice came from within, or above, or below. She could not tell. It was everywhere and nowhere. Then her lamp flickered and died. Total darkness, but not fear. Because suddenly she felt the presence again, not like a ghost or a monster, but something ancient and sacred. And in that moment, the child in her womb shifted, forcefully. Naima gasped, falling to her knees, both hands gripping her belly. Her vision blurred, but within that haze, she saw. She stood on a mountaintop, wind whipping through her hair. Below, an ocean of fire and water stretched endlessly. On either side stood figures, cloaked in shadows, their eyes glowing. One spoke. "You carry the echo of generations," another added. "The child within you was not conceived. He was called," Naima cried out. "But why me?" A third voice, gentler than the others. "Because your spirit remained clean when others were spoiled. Because you listened when others laughed. Because you asked when others ran." Suddenly, a blinding light surged from her womb and tore the vision apart like smoke. She awoke in sweat, lying on the floor of her hut, the oil lamp somehow burning again. Her hands trembled. Her heart thudded in her ears. She looked down at her belly. It glowed faintly only for a second, then faded. But she knew it was real. Naima whispered to the child, "Who are you, little one?" The baby kicked in response. The next day, word spread fast. She spoke to the spirits. She was seen glowing. "She is a daughter of the river gods. She is cursed." The village was now split in three. Those who feared her, those who worshipped her, and those who wanted her gone. A group of elders summoned Mama Asana. "We cannot allow this to continue," Elder Guma declared. "What she carries is not of man. What if it brings ruin? Mama Asana defended her daughter fiercely. She is still flesh and blood. She has harmed no one. But harm will find us through her, hissed another. It was decided. If no answers came in 7 days, Naima would be exiled from the village. That evening, Naima went to the sacred river alone. It had always been her place of peace, even before the stares and the suspicion. She removed her slippers, stepped into the cool water, and spoke aloud. If anyone hears me, please tell me what to do. The water rippled. Then, from its depths rose a figure, half woman, half mist. She wore a crown of river lilies. Her voice was not heard through ears, but through bones. You are the bridge, Naima. The bridge. To what? To what once was, and what must come again. The river woman touched Naima's belly. When the moon is full, it will begin. And just as quickly as she appeared, she vanished. When Naima returned to the village, Mama Asana ran to her, panic in her eyes. Child, what is that on your back? Naima turned slowly, and her mother gasped. There, stretching from her shoulder blade down to her waist, was a shimmering mark, a pattern of stars etched into her skin like fireflies frozen in time. Villagers who saw it fell to their knees. Others screamed and ran. What does this mean? Naima asked, tears falling from her eyes. Mama Asana held her tightly. It means, whatever grows in you is not only a child, it's a sign. And your time is running short. Morning in Macondo used to begin with birdsong and laughter, but not today. Today began with drums. Not the celebratory kind, not the harvest kind. These drums echoed like war, dull, deliberate, filled with dread. Naima stood in front of her hut, her long braids wrapped in a scarf of mourning. Mama Asana stood beside her, holding tight to her daughter's wrist, refusing to let go even as tears clung to her lashes like stubborn dew. The village square had never been so crowded. Even the sick had come. Even the blind, because everyone wanted to see the girl who said she was pure while carrying a child. And now, she bore a glowing mark no one could explain. Elder Guma, tall and sunken like an old baobab tree, raised his staff to silence the crowd. The 7 days have passed, he began, voice deep with finality, and the answers we sought have not come from the gods, but from the fears in our hearts. The people murmured. A few cried. Most stood still like statues. Naima, daughter of Asana, he called. Step forward. She did. Even with her belly full and her future uncertain, Naima walked with the grace of wind. Her bare feet on the dust made no sound. You are hereby exiled from the land of Macondo. Gasps, cries, cheers, stones lifted, but not yet thrown. Mama Asana screamed, You cannot do this to her. She is a child. She is carrying something that no man planted, Guma shouted. And even now, her body shines like the spirits of the dead. What if this child brings plague, fire, madness? A woman in the crowd called out, But what if it brings hope? Silence. Then Elder Wema, the only woman on the council, stood slowly. Let the river decide, she said. All eyes turned to her. Let the river where her mother bathed her. The river where her father died. The river where our ancestors washed their wounds. Let the river tell us if this child is cursed. By midday, the entire village marched to the river bank. Naima stood waist-deep in the water. The mark on her back shimmered beneath the sun. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from not knowing what came next. 2 elders stood on the rocks above her. If the river accepted her, she would be spared. If it rejected her, it was said the water would rise and drag her under. A ritual unlike any other began. Sacred leaves were thrown into the current. Prayers were chanted in a forgotten tongue. Then, silence. The water was still. And then, a pulse. A ripple of silver light spread from Naima's body. The river glowed. Fish jumped. Birds flew. The leaves that had floated lifelessly now circled her like a dance. The villagers gasped. Even Elder Guma stepped back, but the silence was broken by a scream. A small boy, Kafu, cried out and pointed at Naima's belly. "It's moving!" Indeed, her womb pulsed. It moved like a drumbeat. Rhythmic, growing faster. Naima's eyes widened. "It's time," she whispered. A sharp pain shot through her. She collapsed into the water. "Naima!" Mama Asana ran into the river, lifting her daughter into her arms. "She's in labor, but it's too soon," someone cried. "She's barely 6 months along. Let her deliver. Let us see what grows inside her," shouted another. Mama Asana dragged her to the bank. Women surrounded her. The men stood back, except the elders, who stood still, as if carved from stone. Naima screamed, but her scream was not only of pain, it was ancient. It shook the trees. The birds stopped singing. Even the river stilled once more. Then, with one final cry, the baby was born, and all who looked upon him could not speak. The child did not cry. He opened his eyes wide, and they glowed, not white, not blue, but a deep golden light, like the heart of the sun. A boy, strong, breathing, eyes alert, no one dared move. Then Naima, gasping, reached for him. She held him close and whispered, "I know you." And as she touched him, the mark on her back spread to her arm, then to her chest, and finally faded, as if transferring something into the boy. The child blinked once, then smiled. "Mama," Asana wept, not from confusion, but from the warmth the baby's gaze gave her. A warmth like family, like history, like destiny. Elder Wema stepped forward and knelt before Naima and the child. "The river has spoken," she said. "This child is not a curse. He is a gift." The crowd held its breath, but the world will not understand this gift. Not yet. Elder Guma, trembling, turned his eyes away. Shame stained his face. "Take them away," Wema commanded, "somewhere safe until the world is ready." Naima looked at the crowd, some crying, some bowing, others turning away in fear, and she understood. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. For 7 years, the village of Macondo never spoke Naima's name aloud again. Her hut was torn down. Her mother's garden was left to wither. But deep in the heart of the Mukalla forest beyond the stones where owls dare not land, Naima lived, hidden and alive, with her son, whom she named Eyo, meaning joy comes after tears. And joy did come. But it did not come quietly. Eyo grew quickly. By his 2nd birthday, he could speak in full sentences. By his 3rd, he could recite prayers only the oldest elders knew. By 5, he could sense when storms were coming or when someone nearby was about to fall ill. His golden eyes never dimmed, but it wasn't just his eyes. Wherever he walked, flowers bloomed. Animals followed him. Even snakes curled around his feet without striking. But Eyo was not a god. He was a child. And one day, like all children, he asked, "Mama, why do we hide?" Naima knelt before him, brushing the hair from his shining eyes. "Because the world fears what it does not understand." "But I am not fear," Eyo whispered. "I am light." That year, the rains did not come to Macondo. Crops failed. The river receded. Hunger spread like smoke. The villagers gathered daily to beg the ancestors, to ask why their prayers no longer reached the heavens. Then, one evening, a dark cloud rolled over the land. But instead of rain, it brought fire. Lightning struck. Winds howled. Flames devoured huts, trees, and even the sacred drum house. The villagers fled to the square, helpless, screaming, crying. Elder Guma, now weak with age, fell to his knees and shouted, "We have been cursed ever since we cast Naima out." And then someone saw him. A boy, golden-eyed, standing at the edge of the forest, calm as a tree. Ayo had come. Whispers flew through the crowd like birds. Is that her son? The one with the glowing eyes? But he's grown. And he walks through fire? Indeed, Ayo walked barefoot across burning ground. The flames bent away from him like bowing servants. He raised his small hand to the sky, and the clouds froze. "Mama said, I am not to be feared," he said softly. The storm paused. "But I say, it is time for you to choose." "Choose what?" Elder Wema called out. "Whether to live in fear or walk in truth." He turned his hand palm up. A single drop of water formed in the air. Then another, and another. Then rain. Real, heavy, soaking rain. The flames hissed and died. The villagers fell to their knees, and above Ayo's head lightning curved, not in anger but in the shape of a great winged bird. A sign. A promise. Naima, now radiant in spirit and strong as ever, walked into the square behind her son. Her belly no longer round, her back no longer marked, her spirit free. Mama Asana wept aloud. "You never lied. You never lied to us, my child." Naima nodded, eyes full of peace. "I told the truth, but you needed time to believe it." Elder Guma approached her, head bowed, staff shaking. "Forgive us." Naima looked at Ayo. He nodded. "We already have." In the years that followed, Macondo changed. Women were honored. Children were listened to, and Ayo, child of mystery, boy of light, became a leader, not of power, but of presence. People came from other lands to learn from him, not to worship, but to understand. They planted trees named after Naima. They told stories that began, "Once there was a girl no one believed," and they always ended with, "Until the child she bore changed the sky."